Well, how y'all doing? Robo here again with Smash Factory Academy, and we are on module number 4. And I am joined again by Sambo.
What's going on, Robo?
How's it going, Sambo?
Doing good.
So, this is the fourth module in our series called From Idea to Finished Product, or How to Get a Product Idea Made Without Getting Screwed. And this particular module, we cover funding the idea, and this is definitely the having enough money to launch a product is by far the most difficult obstacle to overcome as an inventor.
And I've never seen one thing kill a product so quick.
No.
Like,
No, and we've had products that, and it can do it at any stage of the process. And there's so many things involved with product development that require capital that anywhere along the way, if you don't have the needs met by the time you get there, you're on pause. Okay, and I've seen projects that go on pause and then release later on when there's some more capital and go back on, and then go on pause and then go back on and drag them out for a long time and finally make it to market. And I've seen projects that had funding and were just lightning all the way up to the very, very end and ran out of capital and never got back on their feet. And so it's the number one reason, or I should say this, it's the number one thing when I'm talking to inventors. They don't have the money is always the number one thing. But interestingly enough, that when you talk to investors, the number one thing they talk about is there's not enough good deals, right? So inventors, there's not enough money. People with money, there's not enough good inventions. And so it's really I would have to say it is a big part of why Smash Factory exists, is to figure out a way to close that gap. And it's a combination of a few things. Is one, it's easier for us to start on making sure that you have your shit together and you know what you're doing going in, so that when you get the chance to present your idea, that you're not one of those bad deals, that you're a good deal, that you're able to prove
your
it.
data, you're not fumbling over yourself. Like, that's kind of like the idea behind this is
Exactly.
be prepared, right?
Exactly.
What to be prepared for.
Yeah, we always say that it's less about the idea, the product, and more about the person, right? So if you work on the person, if you build your knowledge base and you prepare yourself and you do know your numbers, your chances for success go up immensely in every area. So the technical tactics of product development and how you navigate this process, but also knowing and understanding the business side of it enough that you're not one of those standing there with your oohing and ahhing when they're asking you about numbers. You ever watch Shark Tank and
Oh, yeah.
that happens? It's kind of, I just cringe when they can't,
You see them start sweating and
or they get angry. Have you ever seen them get like angry about it and like, you just don't understand the idea? They're like, well, no, I just want to know if you know what your costs are. And yeah, it's kind of painful, but let's get into it because I don't want to drag this out. I want to make this slide along. So the topics that we're going to cover are, what are the costs? What kind of expectations that you should be looking for, and know what costs are involved. We're actually going to kind of do overkill. We're really going to go into a lot more depth than you may need as an individual inventor. But I want you to know all the costs that should be considered, and then you're able to make a decision on what's really relevant to you. We're going to discuss how you're going to pay for it. I mean, that's really the question, the number one question everybody asks is, how am I going to find the money and get the money to pay for this idea I have? We're going to discuss types of funding sources and what you can do to go find some of those. I'm going to lay out a funding timelines where these are basically milestones in the process of where you're going to need to consider capital. You know, it's going to take capital all the way along, but these are the big timelines of when you're going to have, you know, an infusion of capital and be prepared for that. I'm also going to discuss the pitch presentation and give you some guidelines on how to prepare a pitch. And then we're going to do our typical insider tips and a few of our stories. So first, as always, a warning, because this is called How to Not Get Screwed. We're always going to throw out warnings throughout the whole thing. Hope and ignorance is not a plan. There are a lot of, I've seen it so many times, where an inventor pulls the trigger and begins pursuit of their product idea, and they haven't done the work to know what the numbers are going to be, what's going to be expected, and they're just hoping that they're going to find money to get this done. Hope and ignorance is not a plan.
Kind of winging it.
Winging it, and I've done it. I mean, it's just your eyes on the prize. You want this thing to come alive, so you just jump before you plan. Money is required. That sounds silly, but getting these things done, even if you have a lot of knowledge and contacts and resources, it requires money to get this done. Somewhere along the way, you're going to have to give money to people to help you bring this product to market. It is required. It always costs more than you're going to expect. Always. It just the hidden costs are really what catches you, and hopefully we can avoid a lot of those surprises. But if you go into it knowing that it's going to cost more, you can fudge and do a little overkill. You know, what is it? Shoot for the moon, and you'll at least get to Arizona.
Yeah,
Something like that. Investors for consumer goods are rare. And trust me, I know this firsthand because we deal with it constantly. We're always sourcing investment capital for projects, and consumer goods are just, people who invest in consumer goods are rare. And I'll go into some detail about why that is and hopefully ways we can work around it. Don't get in trouble. This is another one. I emphasize this a lot. I really hate when I hear those stories of someone pursuing their idea to the detriment of their family, of getting themselves in too deep where they can't get out. And I want to make sure that you as a person dreaming of bringing this product to life, make sure you know what you're doing when you get into it, and make sure that the things that the choices you make don't hurt your financial situation to where you can't recover.
So is this somewhere you would think about, hey, going in before project, here's my limits. You know, I'm willing to go in 25,000, or I'm willing to go in 100,000. And yes, it'll hurt if it doesn't work, but it will not hurt my family. Is that kind of where you start thinking about setting those limits ahead of time?
Oh yeah, definitely. It has to do with, you know, if I'm going to spend this $10,000, where's it coming from? Mm-hmm. What am I not doing with that $10,000 that could be healthy for my family? And, you know, making those decisions to where you don't get so deep that you can't dig out, and or causes a rife with your significant other. which is a lot of the case. Even if you have some of that savings, that might have been planned for something in the future other than this product, and you want to spend it on this. So you've got to work out those issues, because the worst thing that can happen is you go and pursue this and you spend the money, but in the end you've screwed yourself on the family level. And you need to have total buy-in. Both of you need to agree, if you're married, obviously. But and even if you're not married, even if it's just you, don't go into huge financial trouble that you can't dig out of by pursuing this. And what that means is, I'm not saying you shouldn't think about pursuing your dreams. You're just going to have to do a lot of legwork up front, or do some extra things to get to the point where you can.
Or extend that timeline a little bit.
Absolutely. So it's all about being smart and being prepared. And we always say that's what we're really trying to do, is provide all of this information so that you can do these things and make good choices along the way. And so I'm going to get into, there's always money for a great idea. It's just damn hard to locate. And what I mean by that is, like I said, that investment money for consumer goods is rare. And however, if you really do have a great idea that you can prove will make money, will make profit, and you can prove that you can get it made, and you can prove that you will deliver on investment, you can find money. There are people out there who want to invest in products, and it just requires you having a better set of a better presentation, and knowing and being able to explain what it is. The hardest part is just finding the individuals to pitch it to. So there's always money for a great idea. It's just damn hard to locate. So what is it going to cost? And this is I can lay out where the costs are going to be, what to look for, where the cost inflection points are going to happen. But because I don't know your particular product, I don't know what it's going to cost. I can tell you, like I said before, it's going to cost more than you anticipate. And hopefully by digging through these particular items, you can get a closer understanding to what you're going to need. And there's a lot of people who don't understand that they're getting a prototype made, and even getting a final, production sample isn't the total cost. You still have to make your order. You still have to pay for your tooling. You still have all these other costs that are going to require capital. And there's also reaching your customer. You have to sell this product. And luckily there's ways that you can sell your product today that didn't exist not long ago. And they're cheaper ways to bring your product to market, but they still cost money. Customers cost money. So what it's going to cost, we're going to go over design and development. So you're going to be doing your homework, and the equity, the sweat equity you're going to be putting into this. But at some point, you're going to have to go to a professional to get some things done. And it could be, early on from the industrial design aspect, getting your concept drawings, the engineering, but definitely your manufacturing costs, those kind of things. That is the biggest set of budget considerations outside of marketing is your design and development costs. Protection, your patent and your trademarks. As we talked about in the last module, you may or may not need, your patents. You definitely need to pursue trademarks. You need to have some sort of a good name for your product. But this isn't really where most of the costs are going to go. This is actually in the scope of the entire project. This is a fairly low cost area, but you're going to be spending some money. The more work you do yourself, the lower cost it'll be. But it is definitely a consideration point. Marketing and sales, definitely the biggest consideration. Now, again, based on what kind of product you have and the market niche and whatnot, that will fluctuate. It might be a business to business type product that you can do sales just by making phone calls to the right people and creating those networks, and you may have those networks already. In that case, your marketing and sales will be very, very low. But if it's a consumer related product and not a business to business product, it costs money to get customers. And depending on the product and the market, it could be anything from $100,000 to $10 million to do it right. So it's marketing and sales is typically, for consumer goods, one of the highest ticket items. And then business and operations. This is also one that is vastly overlooked. Most inventors focus on number one, which is design and development. What's it going to cost me to get my prototype made? What's it going to cost me to get my cost of goods? And they completely forget that if you're really taking this to market and not going to license it, you're going to have an operational cost. You're going to have to run a business. You're going to be operating a business, and that costs money. And so I want to make sure that we include that in the discussion so that you're better prepared to go get funding or to at least run your business properly. We're also going to discuss launch costs versus ongoing expenses. So the amount of money that you're going to need for your burn rate in the beginning is going to be different than your ongoing rate going forward. You are going to have a lot of costs up front that once they're paid for, they're done. Yes. And so we'll explain more in that in some of the pro forma stuff, which brings me to the last one is start your pro forma early. There's so many people that go through these processes and they don't actually have a compiled set of numbers somewhere. They don't keep a spreadsheet or assemble the numbers and look to those numbers often. They'll get some pricing ideas out there and it just either exists in their head or in different places on their phone. But it's
handwritten in a notebook.
Exactly. So there's no system for what they're trying to do, and I advocate creating a system for your costs. And we have I have a kind of a program that I've developed that I really like to use myself, and I'm going to explain it in a presentation, and you can use whatever it is you want to use or not. I mean, you may have a better one than I have. It's completely up to you. But what I'm advocating is that get something started right away so that as you go forward, you can just continue to edit it, update it, and it's a living document.
And then as you update it, and it becomes more and more accurate too, correct?
Absolutely. When you first start going out and getting bids on projects, a lot of the bids will be estimations because there's a lot of unknowables. Mm-hmm. And the closer you get from one phase to the next, the more defined your project becomes, and your numbers will start to key in on themselves. And so, for instance, we've talked about the grill, and the cost for the grill has changed over 50 times just for the cost of goods on the grill itself. Because every time we make an adjustment to the design, the cost of goods changes. And when the cost of goods change, even a small amount, it changes a lot of paradigms from there. It's a ripple effect. And when you're doing your pricing model for your consumer, you have to consider that if I go up $10 in the price of the manufacturing costs, that's like $60 to my consumer. And so starting your pro forma early, getting your numbers in place, and then continually updating those and massaging those is the goal here. And it's also part of the presentation. If you need to go get outside funding and you follow these processes, you're going to be well prepared. You're not going to be the person on Shark Tank, fumbling over trying to answer financial questions. So I'm going to introduce you to the bean counter. This is a document that I use for creating what am I looking for? Like a
budget?
yeah, it's a budget, but it's just a place where all of my numbers live, and they come and go. There's line items that I'll start with, but then I'll ditch because my plan changes as we go. But mostly the line items will be there. The numbers just change constantly. And the bean counter is it's where I assemble all the projected costs and the numbers that I'm gathering so that I know what I'm working with, that when I get proposals from vendors, that I review those proposals, I choose the vendor that I want to go with, and then I plug that number into this set of spreadsheets. And so this allows me to track my cost of goods, and you won't know your cost of goods until after the engineering phase and after you get all of your bill of materials put together and after you've done all your prototyping. You won't know your true cost of goods until after all of those things. Even if one of the biggest things that I always see all the time is, and I did it too. I would keep saying I did it because, I was the biggest idiot going forward. So there's hope that I would call a company on the phone. Hey, how much to make? I want to make this product. And I would send them over some sketches and, the idea, and they'd say, oh, that's going to be, $45 to make that. That was you can't use those numbers. You have to go through a certain process, which we actually go over in more detail in the next module, is what is that process. But you need to know that your COGS aren't going to start to be realistic until you've gone through the prototyping stage with the people who are going to make your product. That's when you'll know more about your COGS. And they will continue to change all the way up until you're actually making your initial order. So it also tracks the break-even point, which is a very, very important key metric to keep track of. I need to know at the end of the day, this is a business, and I want to make money selling this product. Just me focused on the product itself isn't really the end goal. Me focusing on turning this product into a business and me selling it and making money and quitting my job, that's really the end goal. And so knowing my break even and my profitability at every stage is very, very important. And it's going to be really good for, a future investment partner. As I said, it's a living document. I'm constantly updating it. I'm constantly changing it. I'm playing around with numbers. I increase my production count to see what happens to my numbers. I decrease them. I add more marketing dollars in. But it's a living document. I will explain later, but I prefer using the Google Sheets program because it's online. I can share it with key people that can help me keep it live and updated, and they can see where we're going and help me, fix it and whatever. And then it's as simple or as complex as it's as needed. So the one that I use is actually overkill for most people, and especially an individual, inventor who's got a small thing, it's and they're going to do a lot of the work themselves. What I have is overkill. However, it really is beneficial for their knowledge to know what line items are required and things like that. That these roles that are played.
I mean, the other thing there is it's easy to take away things and go from it from that perspective, rather than be surprised by something that you wouldn't expect.
Absolutely.
At least this kind of helps mentally prepare for what may or may not be on there and see if it's applicable or not.
Exactly. So I'm going to jump over to the bean counter and show you the details of the different tabs and the different line items that we have in there, how to track your cost of goods, and how to know where you're going to be profitable and what to do with those. So here we go. Clap, clap. So that brings us to the next section, which is how are you going to pay for it? And that's always the biggest question. How am I going to pay for this? So the first step in how am I going to pay for this is I have to take personal inventory. I usually look at, cash flow. What does my current income look like? Do I have a day job or an income that is covering all my bills, setting me up for retirement? I've covered all that stuff, and there's enough left over that I have some cash flow coming in. And that cash flow usually bleeds into your savings and your assets. You might own some property. You might have a pretty good savings account built up just for this. So me taking a look at what is it that I can bring to the table money-wise to get this going. I need to know how much I have or how much I will have coming in that I can count on that I can use in this endeavor. And the assets part, for instance, we have a project going on right now where they are selling real estate to fund their product idea. And I'm not advocating that plan. I mean, I think real estate is an amazing investment, but they made the decision with really good input to do that because the real estate had a very, it had a very tight ceiling, and they really this product. I mean, this product, if done right, is a $500 million business. I mean, it could be a category killer. It could be a very good business. It just needs money, and they're willing to sacrifice some of their real estate investment to go back in here. They are also doing some supplementing with their cash flow, which means that the money that they're making from their other business is feeding this. So they're using the combination of their cash flow and these real estate assets to develop this product idea and bring it to market. Friends and family, this is your low-hanging fruit, obviously. Not everybody has a rich uncle, but it is, even though you may not have someone top of mind, friends and family are a good source to start asking questions about where might I go get somebody to help pay for phase one.
It's the easiest networking opportunity. Just
Absolutely.
Say, hey, here's something I'm really passionate about. Here's what I think I want to do. Here's what I think it's going to cost. Do you know someone that can help me?
Right. Or you may already know. I mean, you might have Rich Uncle Charlie already lined out, and most. I would have to. I bet if you went back through the archives and looked up how all these different projects, different product ideas got to market, somewhere in their family somebody stepped up and wrote a check. I mean, I bet the percentage of that happening would surprise you. So another way to pay for this endeavor is do it slow. You do it one step at a time. I very much advocate getting from one phase to another by being methodical in knowing where those phases are and how much they're going to cost me allows me to pace myself accordingly. And like I said earlier, they have enough money to get to the first part, then they have enough money to get to the second part, and then there was a big gap in between the second and third part because it took them a while to get more money. But knowing that there are steps involved where there's going to be the cash needed is important, and you can pace yourself, and it may just take you some time. If you don't have the money to get started now and finish it all the way to the end, doesn't mean you shouldn't get started. You can take that first step, hire a concept artist to develop your drawings, and then when you have enough money, you hire the engineer to develop your engineering drawings and your documentation, and then. So you taking it one step at a time is a really great way to pay for it where you can afford it if you don't have outside capital. And then the last aspect is start looking for capital early. So if you have a really strong idea and you start to put these numbers together and you're fleshing out one hell of a good business model, as I said, consumer good capital is hard to find, but it's not impossible. You need to start looking now. You need to start finding your funding sources early on and putting together a plan right away for that. Don't hide your head in the sand. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about before, this is going to be one of the biggest areas that can kill you, that can kill your project right off the bat. So you might as well start pre-planning for it. Plant some seeds, even if that's all you're doing is planting some seeds, to where the next time you come back, you look at this.
Absolutely. And there's something else popped in my head while you were saying that, is that you don't count on just one. Mm-hmm. You don't have it in the back of your head that, oh, that's my funding source, I'm ready to go. You need to have a plan B as well. And I like to have a plan C.
Yeah.
So
you can have a lot of excitement, but when it comes down to signing a check, you can get a lot of cold feet really fast.
Absolutely. We're working on a project where the money was there to get started and get going, and the money looked like it was going to be able to get us all the way through the master sample level. Not quite enough to place the first orders, right? So I started building the financial model right away and the pitch deck to go get institutional capital. Started building out a presentation that we could go get outside funding for this a year before we ever got to the point where we need it. Well, now we're at the point we're going to go start looking for investment capital. And now those assets were built a long time ago because I knew we were going to need a round B, even though it looked like it. Costs that crept up and different things happened, and we needed it. So, what are the funding sources? Obviously, the individual, you. That's the first one. Is yourself, your savings, your assets, even credit cards. I'm not a big advocate of using credit cards unless you have a pretty good plan, you have a good cash flow. Use a credit card, pay it off, use it, pay it off. It's not going to get you to the end unless you have the black platinum.
MX.
Right. So it's not going to get you to the end unless you have a very, very cheap product to make and your quantities are going to be low and all that. But credit card can get you from one phase to the next. And like I said, if you just do it methodically, pay for one thing and then pay off the credit card, then pay for the next thing, so on and so forth, you can get through there. We already discussed friends and family. I'm going to throw a warning out here, and I think I throw it out again later on. There's a caveat to friends and family. First of all, never, ever, 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 ever borrow money from family members or friends who can't afford it. They don't allow them to fund this thinking it's their big win and they pull all of their savings, or they get in trouble, you shouldn't get in trouble launching your product, and neither should you get your friends and family in trouble. So if friends and family are going to get involved, make sure that they have expendable income, and whatever money that they're giving you is just gamble money. And they need to know that going in. Don't get in trouble with friends and family by taking money that they can't afford to give you.
That's incredibly sound advice.
So it has happened a lot, and it never ends well. Crowdfunding. I'm going to go into some more crowdfunding later on. This is the hottest topic going by far. Crowdfunding has opened up a wealth of access to capital to get your idea launched, and it's an amazing tool. We have associates and friends who have changed their life using crowdfunding, literally changed their life. And it's a great tool. I will be doing a little bit more detail in this about crowdfunding, and I'm going to give some warnings because I have a love-hate relationship for crowdfunding, and we'll explain some of that later, but it's a great source for funding. Angel investors, these are individuals who are, I don't know if they're experts, but they're experienced in funding ideas. They're individuals who would rather put their money behind a business opportunity than other opportunities, or maybe they do both. They might invest in real estate, stocks and bonds, and whatever else, and they just have an affinity for, products. And so angel investors are a great resource for funding. Again, they're a little harder to find. There's a lot of associations that you can go dig up, and there are angel networks in almost every major city in the country, and they're a beautiful, wonderful source for these smaller ideas, even larger ideas. They can get you through that hard time to where you're starting to sell product and make money.
And I've also noticed that these angel investors, they also tend to be a really good source of knowledge.
Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's their number one asset. Yeah. Is that if these guys are they're usually extremely successful businessmen or women in their own right, and they have just a ton of connections and a wealth of knowledge, and when they give you money, when they invest in your idea, they're actually investing in you, and they know it. And they're mentors, and they're a wonderful source for finding capital. But again, you got to have your shit together, and your presentation has to be based on business financial stability. And they're going to ask the tough questions, and they may send you home. Don't be afraid to go back.
Well, and each time they send you home, that's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Like, where did that one go wrong? Next time I come in contact with someone similar to that, okay, I won't do that again. Correct.
So angels, probably my favorite funding source for investments and for products. The other nice thing about angel investors, and it's sort of a caveat onto, there are a lot of support. Most of the angel investors and the venture capital investors that we'll talk about, they specialize in certain niches. They like to keep their money and their investment into niches that they know pretty well. They may have made, they might have been in the HVAC business and made tons of money, and then now they're investing in projects that are all within that realm, or the outdoor, recreational realm, or hunting and fishing, or automobiles. So angels and venture capitalists tend to target into a specific niche of knowledge. So you're not only going to be looking for angels, but you're going to be looking for angels that are in those areas.
And that also, that makes a ton of sense, Robo. They want to invest in people that they believe in, but they also want to invest in something that they feel like they can have some kind of influence over the success of that idea or that product.
Yeah, think about the Shark Tank. Those you can tell what kind of investments each one of them gets involved in more than the others. You know, they're broad enough now that they've expanded into, like, I know that I can get this on QVC, and this is a great QVC product. But, you know, they invest in products they know. And a lot of times the first time they say I'm out, they'll tell them, they'll say, it wasn't your what a great business. I love your idea. I don't understand that niche.
I don't know this business.
I'm
I
out.
can't help you.
I'm out. They are angel investors, and that is what they're doing, is that they're in or out based on how much they think they can help. And they've created a funnel so that if they do take you on, boy, that's what's fast tracking you. That's why those people go pitch there, is because they want to get into their funnel so that they can help fast track them. And that exists on every level of angel. Even your local angel investors are looking, if you fit their niche, they already have a channel that they can throw you right into and run you through it. So I'm going to go into institutions, incubators, and accelerators. These are fairly new. I don't know if they're necessarily new, but they're really a growing niche of capital resource. The incubators and accelerators are a kind of a combination of they go get funds, or they put together a fund, or they have a bunch of angel investors, or it's some venture capital that they've put together. But what they actually do is that they're not just handing you money, they're actually bringing you into their program. And the difference between incubator and accelerator is, an incubator is early stage. So you'll go pitch the idea. If they like the idea and it fits what they want to do, they'll take you on, so to speak. And when they take you on, I say they take you on, you go into their program, and they help take you through the entire process. Smash Factory is actually an incubator, but we're not. I mean, we're kind of a weird hybrid model built from other inventors. So we're not a real incubator. We don't actually fund programs yet. We're working on that. But the traditional incubators, one of the things about an incubator that we'll go into a little bit more too, is that incubators often require you to be not only in their program, but in their program. Like, you may have to relocate to where they are. And some of the best incubators out there are, you're required to pack your stuff up and move to China, or pack your stuff up and move to San Francisco. I mean, you have to be on site. There's a lot of really great pros in that, because you're going to be working with other inventors. The energy is going to be great. The access to resources is incredible. I mean, they'll have workshops, prototyping, manufacturing. They'll have all the engineering experts. Being in an incubator is, if you can get in, that's a wonderful thing to happen to you. Again, you're going to have a pretty damn good, pitch, because it's highly competitive. And the other aspect to the incubators and accelerators, well, I should say incubators, not accelerators, to incubators, is that it's typically for younger and tech. So you with a family and a job, it's highly unlikely you're going to, quit your job, pack your shit up, and move to San Francisco and participate. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying, if you go research incubators and go look at some of the incubators, the photographs, everybody's 25 years old. They're coming out of college. They use their thesis paper to get into the incubator and pursue their ideas.
More specialized. We've noticed that.
Yes.
They really get into agriculture. There'll be an agricultural incubator.
Yes.
Or, like you said, the tech ones in San Fran. They're getting more and more
specialized.
But
And which is great.
They're not all created equal either.
Not at all.
There's the good ones, and then there's the...
There's a lot of local incubators. Like, we have incubators here in our backyard in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and they're they were developed by the local economic development company, and they're part of the city economic development, program. I'm not going to be negative. This is another, but I want to make sure people know and understand this information that they're all run by academia. There's not a single person in those buildings who have actually launched their own products, and so in fact, there's one of them that I sat down with to do a podcast interview, and their entire program's run off of a book, and no one actually guiding these new inventors at that facility have really know the ins and outs of bringing a product to market and what it takes. However, I don't want to put it down because it is a good resource and you can utilize that regardless. Yeah. You shouldn't rely on someone to get you there anyhow. You shouldn't rely on us. It's you that's going to be bringing this product to market. So if you can get into an incubator, it's a good thing regardless. I just want you to be aware that they're out there and they're available. If you need funding, it would be a great way to go pursue it. Accelerators, I only included them here because I'm always asked what's the difference between the incubator and accelerator. Incubators, early stage, don't have a product yet. I'm working on it. I don't even have my prototypes. Accelerators are typically I'm selling product and they can help me go to the next level. I can show up and they can take, I've kind of got proof of concept. I'm making a few sales. It just needs traction and I just need assistance in getting there. Accelerators kind of do the same thing. They mentor you through that process of going from, 10 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour. So that's incubators and accelerators. Then venture capital. This is what everyone thinks of when you're thinking about outside funding. Venture capital is a tool that's been used unbelievably successful. Pros and cons, as always. The pros of venture capital, obviously, it's low risk for you. If you lose, they lose. The people who are involved in venture capital are extremely knowledgeable. I mean, it's like the cream of the crop of people who are, some of the smartest people I've ever known and some of the smartest people I've ever read and follow. They're venture capitalists. They're just brilliant sons of bitches. They really are a smart group. It's hard to get into. You don't pitch a half-baked idea and get venture capital. You really have to have a hell of an idea. It has to have big potential. You're not going to get investment capital to help pay for molds and dies. You're not going to, when you go to venture capital, there's all over the board as to rules of thumb, but more than likely, if you're not asking for, $500 to $1 million up, they're probably not interested because they have to have returns that bring big returns. Yeah. And actually, a lot of people who come to the table with an idea or a product, if they think about it in a different way, they might have that kind of idea. And I'll talk about it, but it's what I call product line extension, or thinking like a brand instead of a product. Sure, I have this one product, but quite honestly, I can create a whole atmosphere of other products and grow it into a much larger proposition if I'm looking at it from a brand standpoint than I am from an individual product. So the product will help me break me into the market and prove that there's need there. But then I have a plan for brand extension and all these other things that we're going to go on. And by thinking that way, you might be able to go in and be able to pick up some venture capital. You won't pick it up early on. You typically don't get venture capital before you've gone through part of the product development process and gotten to a certain point. And I'll show you that as well. And then finally, we have our traditional banks. This would be your bank. Go get a loan. And yes, you can go get loans. it is not my favorite option. It is my least favorite option. And the reason it's my least favorite option is because that, banks and bankers, they do not have a win-win mentality. It is just it's either they're going to win or they're going to win. So if they take you on, the only reason they're giving you money to launch your thing is because you are going to promise to give them something. You're going to promise to, obviously you're going to pay them back regardless of whether your product succeeds. So it's very, very risky capital. You are going to have
it's risky for you, not for the bank.
Exactly. It's risky capital to take on for you. You're going to give up some assets. You're going to put those on the line. You're going to have, some real estate. You're going to have some something to give them as collateral. Sorry, I was looking for that word, but I couldn't think of it. You're going to have collateral to get these loans. Now there's some SBA loans, but I quite honestly, I only know people who have done the SBA process for like service businesses, like launching. I know a guy who launched a tire store. I know a girl who launched a spa using SBA. I never heard of one, an inventor with a product using SBA. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm sure if anybody out there knows of anybody, let me know. I'd love to interview them. But all this information is really, we're only going to give information that we're secure, that we've seen, felt, done, heard of ourselves. So SBA, I'm not really sure. Traditional banks, you just have to know that you're going to be giving up something to get a loan there. It can work. If you have real estate to put down, that, again, like we said earlier, it might be a better play to put real estate down just to get a low interest loan and then use that capital as needed to launch your product. But if it isn't successful, they're not taking on that risk. You are. And then there are some other options. I'm not going to really talk about these because, again, all of the projects I've ever launched, I'm just a small guy, and you're a small guy, Sambo, or you're actually not a small guy, but I did everything on a shoestring, and most of all of the projects we have are shoestring, type projects. So we've never really gotten into this area where we're using these, but there are grants. I'm interviewing a young lady who has a medical device. She was actually the very first person who came to me. It was before Smash Factory existed. So she came to me for help. She knew that I had done some inventions. She came to me for help, and she had invented this medical device. And after hearing her story and after seeing what the product was and after getting to know and understand her, because like I said, it's always about the inventor, it's a winner. It's definitely a winner. But I've never done a medical device. I could not help her, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't really know or understand, her level of commitment. She just had a really cool idea, but I'll be damned, she has just continued. This was 4 years ago when I first met her. She's continued to just chip away at this thing. And she's actually in one of the stages of the FDA clearance with her product. And I know it's crazy. I contacted the other day to see if I could sit down with her. She started with a grant. She lives in Oklahoma, and she got a grant from, I think it was one of the medical schools had this grant program that was, I want to say it's quite a bit of money, a couple $100,000 to get her through her product development and get her into the FDA clearance. And now she's looking for other money. So, she's also applied for some more grants, a little higher level grants to get her to finish up. But grants are an option, and she's proof that there's something to reach out for and at least look at. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm going to find out from her more information, and we'll be bringing that to the Inventor Clan later on. It's the private group we have on Facebook. So also the factory financing. So the factory financing is an option, and it's part of, I think it's called factoring, and I don't know a damn thing about factoring. Factory financing, the only factory financing that I'm familiar with is extended terms. I know that there's more caveats to that, and you can learn more about that. I don't have that information, so I'm not comfortable, giving it. I just want you to be aware that factory financing is out there. I have negotiated terms with my factory to where I got a longer extended timeline to pay for my goods, which allowed me to bring them to market and start sales process and get some orders before I had to start paying for it. It can be a risky factor, and shouldn't be done if you know everything of what you're doing. But there's also other ways to do factory financing that I have not done, that I've heard of, and I'm looking for someone right now I've got a couple of leads on people that we're going to do some interviews with to find out more about the factory financing, and we'll release those in our podcast as well as the Inventor Clan. And then finally, the PO financing. This is becoming more and more of a popular source for capital. Is PO financing, is that you can go get a customer to give you an actual purchase order for buying your product, and they haven't paid you anything yet, but they gave you a purchase order for it, and there are companies out there who will finance the actual manufacturing for those purchase orders. So if I have, let's say I have 1,000 units that I want to sell, I can go sell those 1,000 units, bring the agreements from the customer to a purchase order buyer, and they will give me the money. They actually don't give me any. I actually don't receive money from the PO company. They'll pay the manufacturer for producing those goods, and then we all deliver, and out of that matrix comes a profit that I can then turn over and order my second round and third and whatever. Again, I've never used PO financing. I do know it exists, and I do know that it is a good option that is growing. More and more people are using purchase order financing. There are some caveats. One is that you can't manufacture the products yourself. You have to be buying them from a manufacturer. There's a lot of due diligence in this process. The contracts you get from customers, they have to be non-negotiable, non-refundable contracts. They can't back out of them for some reason. There's a bunch of details regarding PO financing, but once you reach a certain point, and we'll talk about that too, is that once you get to a certain point where you know exactly what your products are going to cost, you have a manufacturer ready to make them, and you have a ready, willing audience that would be willing to do this for, and wait for their products, this might be an option for you. I would highly recommend you digging deeper into it. Again, we're trying to find someone to give us shed more light on it, because we want to just give as many options as we can. And we want to, quite honestly, it's a selfish thing too. We want to know those options for ourselves as we've been growing Smash Factory and some of these projects. We want to be able to have access to these and know and understand how to use them. So
yeah, we would love to have an expert in those areas reach out to us, and help us educate everyone else that's watching this module about how we can find these different aspects.
Absolutely.
Where they're used. So
or if they've used them before, just give them what their first impression was. That's really what we're looking for. There's a lot of people who have used a lot of these things. So let's talk about funding timelines. These are areas where capital is typically, highest. You're going to have, your continual, flow, things here, things there that didn't cost money, but these are sort of the big buckets. Proof of concept stage, which depending on the complexity of your idea, could be something as simple as getting a 3D printed model, and my proof of concept is ready and I can go present it. Sometimes proof of concept requires more involvement, more money. It's more complicated. So based on in fact, I was talking to a industrial designer about concepting helicopters, new helicopters, and proof of concept for a helicopter is so amazingly complex and so detailed that it just blows your mind. But that's where you have to think from everything from a one-piece molded thing all the way to something with 50,000 parts and pieces. So your proof of concept is going to cost whatever it's going to cost. And when I say proof of concept, you need to be able to develop and create some sort of prototype that is good enough where you can demonstrate it to customers and start to develop your idea into more of a fleshed out product. And so getting through proof of concept would be having a prototype that might be a final prototype from a manufacturer and the costs involved to get from there to there. The product development is actually engaging with professionals to develop your engineering drawings and your documentation. It is the going through the entire process to get what we call a minimum viable product, MVP. We'll talk a little bit about MVP being kind of a sort of a goal. A lot is that I wish I had a product. Oh, I do have one. So the Smart Marks product we talked about earlier. So it was a cheap product. I could make them myself, and so I was out trying to get licensing deal. I was out trying to get, figure out manufacturing, and I realized that I could actually. There was a company in Dallas that I found that could make these. They weren't what I really wanted. They were. It wasn't that they were rough. They were a nice finished product, but I wasn't getting the print on them that I wanted. I wanted all these 4-color process printing and all, but I could do a 1-color backer and I could do 1-color printed notebooks that were adhered to them. And I could make something that was as close to what I needed, and somebody would pay me for those. So I had them make 1,000 of those, and I packaged them up myself, and I sold those to friends and family and in bookstores, and I went into the bookstores at the colleges, and I'd just sell them 10 packs at a time. And when they sold those 10 packs, they'd reorder some more. It was a minimum viable product. It wasn't the actual product that it ended up being, but it was something that I could at least get out there. And so the minimum viable product is the lowest threshold that you can get to get out there and get some sales is your MVP. But the product development broken down would be your industrial design, getting your concept art and the design of the product done in a professional manner, 3D drawings, and then the engineering around it, and then the prototyping stage, which would be it starts with the rough prototypes and then it goes all the way through a final prototype, and the costs involved with prototyping, which I think is probably one of the most underrated aspects, because people go in thinking they're going to get a prototype made or two, and that is not usually the case.
Well, and that's kind of what we talked about in the last module too, though, is that you go through an iteration process, right? You get a prototype, you look at it, you play around with it, you have other people play around with it, and then you make improvements.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, you may have 2 or 3 and you may have 100. I mean, and they all cost money. It costs you money every time a new prototype comes. You have to pay for someone to make that prototype. You got to pay for the materials for that prototype. And in fact, the interview I did yesterday with an industrial designer, and he's also an engineer, we went through the prototyping aspect, and he went into some detail about how what he recommends for people is to break out the actual physical labor on the prototype from the materials. Don't let them include both in your proposal, because sometimes they really bump up the cost of the materials for your prototype, and if you break them out separately, you can find out whether or not it's accurate. And materials, it depends on your product. The grill itself, the biggest problem we have with our prototypes is that you can't just order a certain amount of some of those metals. You have to order a sheet that's a certain size. It's way more than what we need for those parts, but they don't sell it in a smaller sheet. So we have to order way more. We have a lot of leftover, so to speak, to get that one prototype made. And the materials costs are they're way too high for the actual product. Once we go to manufacturing, that'll go away. But right now, that's the reality. So the timelines are, getting through the product development stage is a very, very costly area, and this is where you're going to need some money. And then when you hire your core team, and this is when I say hire your core team, it could be, you're hiring, help. More than likely, it's not that. More than likely, it's hiring contractors that you're going to use and that's what we do. We hire a lot of contractors based on the product itself, the experts involved. So you're going to hire certain people to do certain functions, and in order for you to be able to deliver. So when it's hire the core team, you might be engaging with a fulfillment company that's going to actually deliver the orders. You might be engaging with a website company who's going to build out your e-commerce store. This is that area where all those getting your business ready to be a business is all part of that. And the next level is the initial short run. So we're going to pretend that you've went through the development process. You got everything. You got your master sample. You've created a platform where you're able to sell some ore, or if you aren't able to pre-sell, you are ready to sell and you want to make your first order so that you have product on hand so that you can sell it. You need to make your initial short run. And so, for instance, my wife just launched she has a fashion accessories company, and luckily her products are low cost and low quantity enough that we didn't have to get outside capital for all of the startup aspects. The proof of concept were just samples from different companies. They weren't what she was going to design, but they were close enough that she could explain and show people. Product development went through that stage. We were able to swing that. The core team, mostly it was her and I, and our hard work, but we had to hire some people to do certain things to get the business ready. And then we took a chunk of money and bought the initial short run. We bought the minimum order quantity from her suppliers, and it was a chunk. I mean, it's cash. And so we paid half down before the products were made, and then half when they were completed. Before we were able to take ownership of them, they were done and they were on a dock. Before they would ship them, we had to pay the other half, and we had that all worked out. But that was by far the biggest expense, was ordering that first run was 85% of everything that we'd spent. And then sell and ship orders. This is where you kick in your advertising and your marketing, and this is where you fulfill on your orders. And this is, pulling the trigger on your marketing program. Because I'm a marketing guy, I'm going to really emphasize this point. It costs money to get customers. If you aren't thinking through on that from the time that you decided to pull the trigger on this, then you're not thinking. You are going to have to go get customers to buy your product, and you're going to have to go spend money to get in front of those people and to do it right. That's just end of story. That's why there's customer acquisition is a part of the vernacular. It's what every business does. The more money that you can put into that, the more success you're going to find out of it if you're using the right people. But selling your product is the key to having a successful product business. And knowing that you're going to have to pay for that is important. So
we can have a perfect product, and if no one knows about it.
exactly. Yeah, enough said. So, and then scale. So now I've sold my initial order. Now I've got to make another order. Now I've got to grow my business. And so scaling is another area where investment capital comes in. And as a rule of thumb, it's just a rule of, what does rule of thumb mean? Why do they say rule of thumb? Is that because of measuring? Kind of.
Maybe so, I don't know.
I don't know either. So friends and family, typically yourself, the money you're able to pull up, the savings you have, the assets that you're able to provide will get you through, typically through proof of concept stages. That's where you're able to make your own prototypes, get through some of the prototyping stage. You may have enough money. I don't know your financial situation, but you may be able to go through the whole thing on your own dime. If you can, call us. We may need you for investment capital, but depending on your ability to pull together funds, typically getting through the proof of concept and building out the original assets that you're able to show people, make your prototypes to where you can demonstrate what you have. You're going to be doing that on your own, or you're going to be, reaching into some of your friends and family. The product development stage, at the end of the product development stage, is when you look to the crowdfunding source, or incubators. Once you've proven your concept and you're able to present that to your first level investors, and when I say first level investors, the crowd is kind of part of that, is that you're presenting your idea, you've got a prototype, you're demonstrating that prototype, you're showing them how cool it is, and they want to get involved, and you're going to use that money to make your first order, right? So that's typically where they come in, is at that point. And then in between, after you've got all your product development done and you've got your people put together, your all your assets as far as like your sales assets, your website, you're able to go out and pitch to angel investors. It's called your pre-seed round, and you can even get some venture capital involved if it's juicy enough of a deal and you've got all of the qualifications that would entice them, and maybe a former success story, which is a big deal. Like if you've proven you were able to do this once before, you'll get investors more interested earlier on. And so before you make your initial short run, but then your initial short run and your actual coming to market, that's where the money gets bigger. I mean, you're going to be spending more money at that point, and that's another inflection point. And institutional seed funding is what they call this. So it is your venture capitalists, possibly your bank. At this point, you should be able to prove your idea a little bit better, that you've got your financials. A lot more information, or I shouldn't say a lot more. The numbers have been nailed down. So this is where a lot of those people come into play. And then on scaling is when you do your A, B, and C, which are your growth rounds. These are our institutional, typically venture capital, also angel investors get in here. But this is where I'm giving you money. You've shown me that you can sell this product, and you've got some sales and proven it in the marketplace that it is a viable business opportunity. A is after seed round. So after you get your seed round, Series A is the first round of money that you go get after your seed round of money. B is after that. C is after that. So, and typically those are much higher level spends.
And I think the other important thing to point out here is that the cost of capital as far as equity per dollar goes down as you go down this list, as you have a more viable product, as you've proven proof of concept, capital becomes less and less expensive as far as equity goes.
Absolutely. In fact, the next slide is the closer you're able to take your idea to the goal on your own. The goal is getting in the end zone, which is selling product. You know, getting it, going it through the development stage, getting it made, and having an initial order done, and selling that product in the marketplace. The farther you're able to go on your own, by far the better. Yeah. And even, you know, on from there. So you may never need outside capital. You know, the number one resource is yourself. If you can fund it all the way through to where you're making a sale and bringing in revenue, and that revenue lets you order more product, and you have a profitable model, as you know, sort of like what I laid out in the pro forma. If you watch the profitability aspect, and if I can just get it to that point, I'm able to self-fund this, and it's going in running, and I own 100% of it. I didn't give up any control. I didn't give up any equity. And I say give up control. I don't want to make it sound like you give up control. These people are professional investors. They're more of an asset than a controlling part. But they can't, I mean, there are stories about takeovers and all that. If you screw it up, they're going to step in because it's their money. But yes, the farther you can go with your own money, the better off you're going to be. So our next slide is making your pitch. So as far as like, we're going to be talking about, you know, pitching your idea to an investor. It's really funny. I used to only get to this point when we didn't have any money anymore, or didn't have any money from the beginning, right? I advocate creating a pitch almost from the start. And the reason is that it forces you to answer a lot of questions that normally inventors just completely overlook. It forces you to be able to give a rational, professional level pitch on why your frickin' idea is this good and why you can bring it to market. And if you do this early on, like once you gather up all your information, you can't do this right away. You need to have your numbers. You need to have a lot of things ironed out. But if you do this as early on as possible, I start working on the pitch deck after I get done writing the marketing blueprint, and which is part of the marketing process, and not really in this particular deal, but the marketing blueprint starts from day one. And I start working on the marketing blueprint. It usually takes me about a month to put together. It's where I do all my research, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, you know, how we're going to position this in the market, you know, how we're going to price it, who our target market is, what our plan is to bring it to the market is all part of that. And as soon as that's over, I go into the developing a pitch deck. And when I say if I'm doing this for my own projects, I do it in that succession. But if it's a client that we're working with, that's when I have them start the pitch deck process right there. So because it forces them to really, really, really sift all of the bullshit off the edges and just have the very center points that you need to have. And they rework it and rework it and rework it, and pretty soon the damn thing is good, and they know their business better. So starting your pitch deck early is good. Just like I said, you know, looking for investment capital early on is good. You're going to need a way to present your idea. Also, the pitch deck, or creating the pitch assets, is important for crowdfunding, because if you go through this process, you essentially have created the foundation for what you're going to need in a crowdfunding project, and to develop your sales page, your sales video. It's sort of like the script for those things. So it has a multiple level reason for being. And the pitch consists of, three main elements. There's some sub elements, but there's three main elements. The number one thing that I work on is the pitch deck. It's just a PowerPoint presentation that you would use to present your idea to a potential investor or potential consumer. And there is a formula for a pitch deck. I'm gonna give you that formula here, and I've tried to be creative with these. I try to deviate from the formula, and it isn't that you can't. It's just that investors, especially seasoned investors, they want to know this information. They want to kind of know it in this context. They're used to that, and you just need to deliver what they're looking for. Plus, it's a pretty proven formula. I mean, it's billions and billions of dollars have been transferred because they use this formula. So you really need to use the proven pitch deck formula, and it can be presented very simply. Like I said, you can use PowerPoint. I use Keynote, but you're going to put together a PDF file of it. So you're going to develop the pitch deck in PowerPoint or in Keynote. You're going to output it as a PDF to send to potential people that want to see it. You're going to use the presentation in live setting, and then I record mine. I like to make a video. I like to go through the pitch deck and record it for a couple reasons. One is every time I record it, I get better at it. I see flaws.
Well, it's instant feedback.
And it's me pitching it. It's it's me getting better at explaining my idea, and so recording your actual pitch deck is a very good tactic for fine-tuning it. The second element that you're going to need is called an executive summary. It's a one-page sheet that takes all of the information that is in the pitch deck, and it just puts it on a one sheet that somebody can just read through really quick. And like I said, I call it the one-sheeter. And it is the similar or the same info as the pitch deck. And then I like to do a video. So like my videos are a little different than the ones you're going to see on Kickstarter or some of those crowdfunding pages. But my video follows the same formula as my pitch deck. The difference is that it's live. So I'm doing live demo. I'm showing the investor or the customer how to use it, the features and benefits, how it
alleviates pain points.
Exactly. So the pitch video is a different video than the pitch deck video. So you can shoot it with your iPhone, but you're going to go through problem solution. You're going to go through features and benefits. You're going to go through why I came up with this idea in the first place. I'm going to show people using it. Probably going to have some testimonials in it. So it's a tool that you're going to use to either send out to investors or to use it for your crowdfunding, whatever it is you need. So let's break into the pitch deck formula itself. It opens the first slide is the purpose, or what I like to call the big hairy ass goal, right? So the more clear you can make your presentation right up front. What is this thing supposed to do and be? So the grill purpose page, it's the first page on the deck, is we want to be the Yeti of grills. That is our big hairy ass goal.
One sentence can say so much.
Absolutely, and that's what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to set the stage immediately for these people. You don't need to go into a long executive summary. The very first slide is, I want to punch you right in the gut, and I want to say, pay attention to me, because this is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what am I trying to say? Not more unique, but relevant. The reason I said, we want to be the Yeti of grills is because that's actually a tactic used pretty often with seasoned professionals who go get capital. Is that they said, if you can figure out a way to tie your idea to an idea that they already know about, and that's successful, is the best thing you can do. And it can't always be done. It can't always be done. And if you really try to stretch it and you're not able to follow through, they're gonna recognize that. So you got to use common sense in that. But this is where you have to dig deep and say, why do I believe in this dream so much? And it doesn't have to be that level. It doesn't have to be the Yeti of anything. It doesn't have to be the Uber of anything, which, by the way, is the most overused one right now. but it needs to be enough that you're going to get their attention and let them pay attention, and it answers a lot of questions right up front. If they make that connection, a lot of the things that I would normally have to go through to get them to understand, they'll get it right away. These are, like I said, they're some of the smartest people. The second one is the problem. What is the problem I was trying to solve? And what problems existed that I overcame? And the more dramatic of a problem that I can present, that they understand, the better off I'm going to be. And so I really want to condense those down. Sometimes, like one of the things I have with creating problems is that I can come up with 20, right? I have like 20 problems or 50 problems my product overcomes, but they don't want to see 20, 50 problems. I want to try to categorize those as higher level problems, or I just want to pick the biggest ones. What are the main reasons that I want to develop this? What am I trying to solve? And then I hint to a solution. Now this is a tactic that I've pulled from direct marketing and my knowledge in marketing, is that I don't necessarily go all out. I basically say, here's my big idea. And then I say, here's all the problems. This is what I kept seeing. This is what's happening in the world. This is why moms are so mad, with formula. This is why, your fingers get crushed when you do this. I give the problems, and then I say, but you know what? It doesn't have to be like that. What if there was a way to XYZ? And I just basically tee up that there is a solution, but I don't actually reveal it yet. I just kind of tee it up on that slide. And then I do my product reveal. And then I say, that's why we invented X. Or that's why I invented X. Is because I can alleviate all these things, and I deliver what we call the unique selling proposition. So if you took your purpose, but you looked at your problems and you created a why I'm different in the market, why my product solves those, and I can summarize that in a sentence. That's my unique selling proposition. So I want to introduce you to my product X. It cures this, it solves this, it does this. My unique selling proposition in a sentence. And it's a hard thing to do. I'm getting stumped here, but it's a hard thing to do to get it exactly right. Even I have a hard time coming up with some unique selling propositions. You have to work at it. We have supplements here that we're going to provide to help work through that process.
Well, it's hard to take a complex problem and try to make it simple into one sentence that everyone understands.
Yeah, it's sort of unique selling proposition is kind of like a really good tagline, and it incorporates what it is that we do and how we do it differently. So what it is that I solve and how do I solve it different. And then I go into solutions. So this is essentially, so I told you that there's problems. I revealed that I told you that I have a solution, now I got to tell you what those are. So this is where I go into my features and benefits and how I have created the solution for the problem. Again, I don't want to give 50 different line items. I want to condense those down into the most relevant that go right to the problem. You know, you got stains and nothing gets them out. I have this product. We make it with this certain, acid from a jellyfish that's just recently been discovered, and it removes stains, 100% of the time. And here's our research. So when I reveal the solution, it harkens back to the problems and how we solve that solution with this product. And then you do why now. Now, the reason why now is out there is because there's a lot of really great ideas, but why would I want to take the opportunity now? What makes the landscape different? It could be anything from the reason now is because science has caught up to the problem. Before now, we weren't able to solve mold in air ducts, but now through science we are able to solve that problem. The why now is a relevant aspect of why that's being brought to market now and why it can work now. So with the grill, again, I'm going to use that one as if we think we're going to be the Yeti of grills, that actually is the why now. Why would you bring a grill of this sort now? It's because Yeti has proven that the market will pay a premium price for a very quality item in that target market. They laid that groundwork. That's why now. And it's hot. Somebody's going to be doing this if we don't do it. So why now is you've got to show them the reason that this is happening is because either it wasn't able to happen before, or no one else could figure it out, or I'm smarter. You got to tell them, why now. The market opportunity, this is very typical. It's just your market research. It's, how big is the opportunity? Are we talking about an opportunity that's $1 million business? Or are we talking about an opportunity that's $1 billion business? So you have to lay out the foundation of what the market size and opportunity is. There's a little caveat to this because, again, like we said, if you're pitching to an angel, a seasoned angel investor or a venture capital guy, right? Or I say guy, venture capital person, they know more about that market than you do. You trying to tell them the numbers in their niche they already know.
Well, I think the other problem here is people also say, this is for everyone. No, it's not for everyone.
Absolutely not. That's the whole point, is that the more niche you can be, the better off you'll be. And so when I get to the market opportunity, I always laugh because I'm going to go back to Shark Tank, and I have, again, I have a love-hate relationship with that show. I think it was Damon Johns that said, somebody was up there pitching how big the market was. So when they asked, he goes, well, how do you value your company at $1 million and you never sold anything? And they said, because this is a $200 billion industry, and if we can just get X percent, and Damon John says, well, quite honestly, bankruptcy is a $200 billion industry, and doesn't make it a good opportunity.
Yeah.
And so the market opportunity has to be thought through, and say you're presenting the market opportunity in one aspect to show that you do know, right? I do know this is a $21 billion industry, but more importantly, what are the key aspects? It kind of goes back to the why now in a way. What are the key aspects that are happening in the market that have opened up this opportunity right now? So yes, I want to see that this is a $21 million opportunity or whatever. This company, I want you to prove to me that this company can be a large $100 million operation. But more importantly, I want you to tell me what makes the landscape in your particular industry, in this particular niche, ripe for the picking now, and you introduce this now. And again, I'm going to continue to use the grill for this particular one, is that the market opportunity, Yeti proved that people would pay $350 for a damn cooler, right? Nobody would have believed that before Yeti came along. So the why now is that Yeti opened up the door to this new landscape. The market opportunity is that these individuals who are spending a lot of money on outdoor products, it's growing. It's growing. It's a fast growing market, and the grill aspect has not been fulfilled yet. So the market opportunity has less to do with the fact that it's so big, because there's 71 million households in the United States who have more than 2 grills.
It's such a crazy stat.
It is, and they repurchase grills every 2.5 years, right? So the market opportunity size is pretty vast. But the people I'm going to be pitching this to, they're going to know that shit, right? But what is it that they maybe don't know? Well, they don't know insider information that I know, right? So I might be able to go in there and say, well, the reason that the market opportunity is great is because that no one has developed a product for this particular niche, and this is going to happen. There's so many different things that can be going on within your market that if you can reveal new information in the market opportunity to these people, you're going to have a pretty good foothold.
It's kind of like the aha moment or the eye opener.
Oh man, if you can get somebody to, if you can surprise a potential investor during your presentation, and it's from truth, I think you're probably going to get some money. So then the next slide is competition. You have to address who's out there right now, what are they doing, and why we're different. Why are we better than the competition? What's our plan to beat the competition? Rule of thumb that we always use, we don't even get involved with a product that isn't either 10 times better than what's available, or has the ability to create its own brand new category. We're so different than the competition that we're actually our own category.
So in this competition like in this part, would you want to say what the competition does well and what they don't do well, or how would you address the competition?
Well, first of all, in the competition slide, you don't ever make fun of the competition. That's a really bad thing to do. In fact, you don't even know what VC companies are invested in your competition. But you don't make fun of the competition. You just point out facts. You point out, in competition level, you say that here's how much they're charging. Here's some of the you've already addressed problems in the market without pointing out particular competition. But you might say that for instance, these 5 particular competitors last year grew 12%, right? However, none of them supply this, which is what we're going to do. In your competition, you want to let them, the prospect, know that you know who the competition is and how you plan on your strategy on winning over them.
Would you consider that like a differentiator?
Yes, it is. It is a differentiator, but it's addressing the fact that it's addressing the fact that you know there's competition and that you know how to tackle it. The business model itself. So this is the next slide. So how are we going to make money? So what is my product cost? What is my price? What is the business model of how I'm going to deliver to you the profit that you're looking for? So the business model is part of you'll have some of the financial plans in there. This could be 2 to 3 slides. If you can crunch it into one, awesome. But the business model is, I plan on selling these products for $500. My profit is X, and I have a continuity program here. This is the business model is a great way for you to showcase how you plan on creating a strategy for this business that is able to make money. The market strategy. So market strategy is essentially what it says is that what is it what's my plan for breaking into the market from my launch phase, my pre-sales phase, to my launch phase, to my ongoing scale phase. So how do I plan on approaching the market, and what are my tactics that I'm going to use to do that? So what is my go-to-market strategy? Then I have a slide where we're trying to pick this up a little bit because we're dragging a little. The status and the traction. So where are we to this date? The status is that we've completed the prototypes, we've done customer interviews, we have engaged with an industrial design firm who's developed our drawings. We have a patent applied for but not yet issued. We have a marketing firm that has developed all of our branding elements. So you're basically laying out where I'm at and all the steps involved to get to where I am right today presenting to you. And traction would be if I'm selling product. So my traction would be, have I made some sales? Do I have some POs? What involvement and actual traction do I have?
And what is your growth trajectory showing so far?
Yes.
Etc.
Then I go into the team. So, which is outside of probably, maybe nothing. But the team is the most important aspect. The investors invest in people. They don't really invest in product. And they want to know that you have a good enough product that it can do what you say it's going to do. They want to know that you've thought through all of these elements. But most all the time when you talk to an investor, they invest in people. They invest in their belief whether you can pull this shit off or not. So the team you put together, which starts with you, and the support team you have underneath you, is the most relevant aspect to getting funding. Because if you can sell yourself to them, then they'll pick you up. And in fact, there are so many stories about not even that very good of ideas getting funding just because the person pitching and the person behind it was so dynamic and probably had some sort of success rate before that they got in because of that. That's the driving factor and it's the driving factor in what makes a product work anyways. It isn't the product. We've said this before a few times. It's less about the product and more about the person. It's about the person behind it. So on the team, the only thing I'm going to say about this is that, you're going to lay out who you are, the team members. It's a bad idea to have a team that's full of your family. I mean, that's a big red flag unless you've, got brothers and sisters who are, Ivy League graduates or, have unbelievable credentials. Having a team put together methodically is a good idea. Kind of a workaround. I'll often go out and recruit before I'm ready to see level of interest from certain people that I really want to work on a project. So I will put together a team that's kind of a virtual team of high-level achievers within a specific niche that I'd really like to have. So I might go find a national sales manager in that particular niche that I think if I get money, if I had the money to launch this product the way we want to, I would go hire the best, and that guy's the best. And I would call him on the phone, and I would interview him like it's a job interview. I would be very clear that this has not happened yet. We're sourcing money. Here's the idea. Here's what we're working on. If we got to this point, would you have any interest? And so I sort of do a virtual team based off of that. It's better though, and I don't want to lie to anyone, so I would definitely have their buy-in. If I can't get that, then it just might be me on that page and my credentials and why I'm the one to bring it to market. And then the next step is the financial ask. So this is pretty simple. How much money do we need? We need $250,000. We need $2 million. We need $5 million. The financial ask is, what is it that I'm asking for in capital, and what I'm willing to give to you in return. So going back to Shark Tank, what do I want? We're seeking $150,000 for 2% of our company. And then that's when they start to fly in with, well, how do you evaluate your company? And that's a very detailed aspect in the financial aspect part. And one that it would just take us too long to dig into a lot of these, but I just want to give you the outline of the pitch deck formula. But the financial ask is essentially, I want this much money, and I'm willing to give you this much of my company, or this is how I plan on paying you back.
Yeah.
More or less, right?
Well, it's making sure you have accurate ask, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're presenting the case for price accurate.
Yeah. And it's a negotiable aspect, just like it is on any of the investor pitches. That is the negotiable aspect, is that I want X for Y, and they're going to come back and say, well, how did you evaluate that? And then you're going to answer. And then, so in the financial ask, there are, at this point, this is where if you're really getting serious and you're pitching this in front of a true professional, I hope that you would have at least visited with a financial person. I'm not a financial guy. I use financial experts to help me put these packages together, because that's not what I do. I'm a crazy ass inventor. But I do know, and I've put together enough decks that the financial ask is where you lay down what it is you're willing, what it is that you're looking for, and how they're going to make their money back. And then the last deck is the use of funds. So if you're going to give me $1 million, this is how I plan on using it. And it needs to make sense. And just as a hint to wrap up this section, that the use of funds, first of all, never, ever, ever, ever pay yourself back, right? Have you ever seen that on Shark Tank? First of all, I'm gonna, my wife and I have spent 4 years on this project, and the first thing we're gonna do is cut us a big old check to get our money back that we've invested. You don't pay yourself back. They could care less how much time and how much money you've put into this project up till now. The use of funds, the best content in use of funds needs to be, how am I going to grow? How am I going to get customers? It's customer acquisition. If you have line items in there that all have to do with sales, is what they want to see. I'm going to hire this national sales manager, and he's going to go get these sales for me. We're going to launch our website, and we're going to do an advertising campaign, and The use of funds needs to be tied to me selling my thing. It can be some of the final aspects of development. Like, I'm going to use these funds to purchase our initial orders, and then I'm going to use the funds to do a big advertising campaign to sell all those products. But you never want to do, the use of funds is management fees and all of the overhead and admin that do not reflect sales.
You want it to be geared towards growth.
Absolutely.
Everything's got to be geared towards growth. The other thing that I don't think you mentioned necessarily is that you've already done the selling, you've sold it, and this would be kind of like another way of like purchase order financing through,
right.
raising capital.
We need some growth money. And they've seen it all, but I just want to make sure that you're clear that you definitely don't want, that's just going to be a big bomb in the stink house. If you go in there trying to pitch you getting money back, you paying yourself salaries, They don't want to see any of that. They just want to see growth. And I'm not saying lie about things. I'm just saying make sure that your strategy is I'm going to actually use these funds to sell product. I'm still going to get my money later on. So the 2 and 3 pitch deck, I went into a lot of detail about the pitch deck because the pitch deck can feed these 2 elements. So these 2 elements would be the executive summary and the basically the investor video, and the content on the 1-page executive summary is pretty much the same exact content that's on the pitch deck. It's just in a written format that I can take a look at 1 page, and it's sort of the script that you use when you're pitching. You just want it on 1 page. I like to use the second side of that. There's 2 sides. I like to put some of the images on the other side. You don't see this a whole lot, but I find it very helpful if somebody gets a hold of my executive summary, either a PDF file of it, in an email, or they get a hold of a printed copy. I like to have my product on there. I like to have a really kind of a slick picture of my product and some call outs to the features and benefits. And like we said in the video, the investor video uses the same script as the pitch deck. It starts off with what's my big idea, then it goes into my problems, then it goes into my reveal my solution, goes into my features and benefits, details, on and on and on. And the only difference is that the ending aspect where I get into a lot of the detail about my ask and my financials. You may not have a lot of that there in the investor video. The investor video is kind of a teaser to want to be able to be pitched to. So I might send the investor video along with an executive summary to someone, and they'll watch the video, and it's to create excitement that they're wanting to see more. And so I'll remove the last 4 or 5 slides, but I will go through the problem solution. I'll go all the way through the differentiation, the market opportunity, and those kind of things in my pitch video or my investor video. And the investor video is where I get a chance to tell my story. If you have a great background story on your product, which I hope you do, this is your chance to tell that story of why you came up with this idea, where it came from, your hero's journey, so to speak. This is where you demo your product itself and provide testimonials. And when I say provide testimonials, what I really, really like is when you show other people using your product and kind of getting giddy over it, that they enjoy it. So customers interacting with your product is better than testimonials itself. But if your product doesn't really lend to that, then you can do testimonials about how it might affect their XYZ. The video needs to be unique, and it needs to create excitement. That's really what the video's purpose is that if an investor gets a hold of it, you want them to be able to I want to see more.
You want to get to the end of it.
Right. And this is a great place to go to Kickstarter and look through a lot of videos there, because that's really what they do. Those are the investor videos that tee it all up. The problem with the Kickstarter videos is that they don't give me any financial information. They don't give me the details I really need to make a decision, but it might give me enough information that I want to at least investigate a little bit more. And then it does not need to be professional. You can shoot this with an iPhone, iPad, just any kind of camcorder. The script being based off of the pitch deck is the most important part. Watch a bunch of different videos. You do not need to hire professional staff. Now, we have created some really, really slick, beautiful investor videos, and it can elevate, but it is not necessary. I just don't want people to think, I got to go out and spend $10,000 on a video.
No.
You don't need to. And the time should be, anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes. Don't let anybody tell you that it needs to be 60 seconds or less. That's bull. You cannot give enough education and details about your product and your idea and the things that someone's going to need to know in 60 seconds. It just isn't possible. Those are for ads, and those don't even close that well. So, you need to be looking at maybe a 4 to 10 minute video and covering the important aspects of what it is you're trying to present, and you'll find success. It needs to be as long as it needs to be. I have created 40-minute videos before. I have. And the thing is that the content was compelling, and if it gets in the right hands to the right people who are interested, they'll watch it. That's the truth. They will watch it if it matters. I mean, you sit through a 2-hour movie. True. If it's a good movie, you're going to watch it. Well, I even watch bad movies, but it's more about the content involved than it is about the length. So that's the closeout of the pitch deck, the executive summary, and the video. These are great assets for you to use as tools to go seek capital. But more importantly, just putting them together is an amazing exercise that will really help you fine-tune what you know and how you approach your product business. So now we're moving into crowdfundings, and this is probably one of the hottest topics going right now. I think that I more discussions going on about crowdfunding than pretty much any other part of the invention space.
And I imagine a lot of people have friends that have launched some product or some idea on Kickstarter. I know I had a friend that did kind of a personal planner, and they were wildly successful with it. But then, Robo, you've had your friends that have had.
Oh yeah. I got friends that are. One of my buddies' company. They've done probably more Kickstarters, crowdfunding, than any agency. They're a marketing firm, and they specialize in crowdfunding. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later on. But yeah, I want to say that their numbers are in the $300 million range of projects that they've helped, see through the crowdfunding playground. And I've learned a lot of what I know from him and a few others. Even Ron Lynch, who's part of our Smash Factory team. He's done several crowdfunding programs, and very successfully. He's had a winner every time. In fact, the last one he's doing, he teamed up with Roy, my other buddy, and they were 487% over their goal. So they know what they're doing. And one of the things that we talk about a lot with crowdfunding is, the pros and the cons. And there's a lot of inventors who immediately jump to the crowdfunding idea because it is such an amazing platform. It's a platform that we've never had access to prior, and it's opened up doors. But there are a lot of cautions, and we'll go into some of that. So these are, essentially, unless you've been living under a rock, these platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo are called crowdfunding platforms. And I want to be clear about something. They actually connect donors with inventors. So the people who, the backers, they call them backers, they're actually donating money to your campaign. And that's how they legally work around advertising and marketing to individuals who are not accredited investors. So accredited investors are people who you can market your products to, pitch your investment opportunity to accredited investors. Those are people with a net worth of, I want to say, it's changed recently. They've lowered some things, but you have to have like $1 million in net worth, and also an annual household income of $250,000.
Yeah, I think you have to have liquid assets of 250 plus too.
Yeah, so there's, and the reason I'm a little bit gray area on that is because it has changed lately. They've lowered some standards, and they've created some new ways for investors to get involved in investing in opportunities. And so crowdfunding, the way they work around it is you're basically giving a donation to the invention. The gift that you get would be the product, and you might get the product, you might get a T-shirt as well. So they have these different gifting levels or different donation levels. So they're really aligning donors with inventors, and that's a workaround for them. And so the biggest question you need to ask yourself before you get started is before I even have people decide whether or not which platform to pick, and we'll go into a little of that detail. Before you choose a platform for crowdfunding, if you want to do this, the first thing you need to do is figure out if your product fits. There's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of misunderstanding about these platforms. They are extremely good at a certain thing. If you think about the certain target audience that's on these platforms, they're young. They're between 18, 19 years old and 30 years old. They are very into technology, and so if your product caters, if that's your target market demographic, then these are great platforms for you. If that's who you're trying to sell to, by all means, I would very highly consider these platforms. There's been a lot of inventions and inventors that we've worked with that's all they can talk about is when are we going to be able to go on Kickstarter. And I keep telling them over and over again, this product does not fit that platform. That your product is 45-year-old males who aren't even on Facebook, let alone when I did the customer surveys and we did the product demonstrations early on, the demographic we were after didn't even know what Kickstarter was. Yeah, so you really need to define whether or not these are the right platforms for you. And I always look for, is it a good fit for my product? That's where I start first. And does it match my goals? So if my goal is to just get product launched, not necessarily profitable, but I just want to get my first ones made so that I can get going and get started, then this is good. If your goal is to be profitable and to keep if you've got just a small amount of margin, you really have to look hard because these cost money.
Would this be something about covering maybe like an initial order or something of that sort?
Yes. So the project that we're going to use for the action plan, the modules for the action plan, we're going to use the Kickstarter platform to demonstrate not only the platform, but it's a perfect product for that demographic. My number one avatar is a 24 to 32-year-old working professional that's technology related. Hopefully they're like a mobile programmers. I'm going after the videographers, photographers market. A lot of those people are on here. And it's really funny, when I first started doing research when the crowdfunding first came out, and even today, if you go look up the best sellers, that's a really, do a Google search for, best sellers on Kickstarter. You're going to see card games and software for Dungeons and Dragons. There's a huge, pool of people who funded Dungeons and Dragons and high-tech watches and backpacks. Those are some of the highest backed products and consistently. So, if your goal is to get, your product at least through the product development, you need some money to do the final development to bring to market, and it fits these crowdfunding platforms, then I say this is a great platform to go into. The fees and the hidden costs. So the fees are pretty straight up. They publish their fees. The Kickstarter, it's what, 5%?
Yeah, 5%.
So it's 5% of whatever it is you raise. And Indiegogo is similar, isn't it?
4%.
4%. And so their fees for running on their platform aren't that high. But then you've got to also consider the credit card fees. So their
3 to
credit card
5%.
their credit card fees are pretty high. It's 3 to 5%. So now I'm at 9 to 12%.
Should you make me do math?
Math wasn't one of my gooder subjects.
About 7 to 10%.
7 to 10%. And so, right off the top, that's a line item in that, your profit calculator, your pro forma. If you're going to go this platform, you need to plug that in, because those that comes right out of your profit. And so you need to know that's going to go on. The hidden cost part also is needs to be known that the oh wait, I want to talk about some more differences between them before I go into those. So some other differences between Kickstarter and Indiegogo are that they're very similar platforms in both their demographic and the way they run, but they just have some little tweaks and nuances. For instance, Kickstarter, they curate the projects that are going to go onto their platform, so it's not an all come all serve. They'll review your product to determine whether or not they want to run it on their platform. Indiegogo, it's pretty wide open. They don't curate their platform like Kickstarter does. Also, Kickstarter is what they call a fixed fee, isn't it? Isn't it called fixed fee?
It's a fixed call.
Fixed financial. So essentially what it means is that if you set a goal, say for $50,000, and you don't reach that goal, then you don't get any money. Basically, it's all or nothing. So if you don't reach the goal you set, then you're not going to receive your funds. And if you go over your goal, then you're fine. But if you don't reach your goal, you basically failed, and you don't get any of your money. Indiegogo is theirs is a flexible program where if you set it at 50,000 and you make 20,000, you can receive your money from them. Another big difference between the two is the way that they promote, because that's something else that is very important to know, is that these platforms, just because you're on the platform doesn't make you an automatic winner. Essentially, they need to get behind your program, behind your product, and promote it for you, for it to really work. If you're going to be, it's a huge platform now. Mm-hmm. It's like Amazon. If you can put a product on Amazon, doesn't mean anything if nobody can find it, if it's way, way down in the listings. So to be able to be found on these platforms, you either have to drive traffic directly to your promotion, or they have to promote it on there, where they do product highlights. And Kickstarter, they choose, they kind of old-fashioned choose who to get behind. They do
it's
use
a manual pick, like, this one looks like it's going to be really good.
Right. This one's getting a lot of traction. We're going to get behind it. And they do like to get behind winners. If you're getting a lot of traction, then they'll get behind you and they'll start promoting you, and then it just picks up in speed. And Indiegogo, they use an algorithm to get behind theirs. I can't remember what it's called. It's Go something. Mm-hmm. But they use it basically an algorithm. It kind of ends up being the same. They're still just going to get behind what looks like to be winners. And if you don't have traction, they're not going to get behind you. So, which, that's the other part of the hidden costs, is that when you're launching a campaign, you can't, no longer can you just be on there and be successful. You have to have a very strategic plan going in, and you're going to have to, I recommend, if you've not done this before and you don't have a marketing background, then hire a professional. And there's a bunch of professionals out there. We have several that we can also recommend, that they have a formula that they use to go through this program to launch it successfully. And not only that, but you're going to have some assets. Just on the page itself, you need to have some really nice photography. You're going to have one hell of a killer sales video. And there's a formula for all of those things as well. The way you write your copy is formulaic, but it's very strategic. The successful campaigns, if you go look at the top successful campaigns, you'll start to see a lot of similarities in the style of the way the copy's written, in the way that the program is put together. You'll see crossovers because that formula works really well. Other formulas don't. So I also want you to be prepared and be cautious when you go into this. The press really jumped on and really lauded the crowdfunding platform so much that everybody just goes blindly into it. And like we always say, be prepared and be cautious in every step of this development process. This is another one where you really need to go in with your eyes open, because 60% of Kickstarters fail to reach their goal. So that's a very, very high number. So you can spend a lot of time and energy pursuing this as a route for funding your project, and it could still fail. Now,
And then especially a Kickstarter where it's an all or nothing
right,
system.
right.
If you fail to meet that,
then that's gone.
Yeah.
And even the ones that actually got their enough backing and reached their goal, 9 to 14% of those fail to deliver product. And that number is, from insider information, that's a very low number, meaning they think that it's that it's more than that.
Yeah.
And of all of the projects that I personally have sat down with inventors who've gone this route and failed, and we were trying to bail them out of their situation where they weren't able to manufacture the products correctly, and they had product failure, their cost of goods was way higher, all these different elements added up that they were unable to deliver product to their consumers. There's a lot of them out there. And so I just want you to be aware that there's a right and wrong way to roll these programs out, both before you take it on and then after, and when you should. 85% of Indiegogos fail to reach their goal, and only 20 to 40%, so that'd be what, 60 to 80% failed to deliver.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty scary.
That's very scary.
So if you're going to go and you want to go, use this as a funding route, which I'm going to go back and say, if your product fits the demographic and if your goals are to just get the initial product ordered, then this is a good route. So you need to have your shit together. And what I mean by that is that on the production side, you need to be most all the way through production to the very, very end. You need to be at the final prototype, or better yet, have your master sample in hand. This will alleviate a lot of headaches going down the road, and essentially you are right there at the very end, where once you get that money released to you, you turn it over to your manufacturer to create the product, your order, turn around and deliver to those customers, and you're off and running. And if you set your pricing model up right, as we discussed earlier, where you make sure you have your margins in there, the correct margins, that way once you've purchased the initial order and you've fulfilled on it, you have some money left over to then order again, and marketing and sales and so on and so on. Because that's where most people fail in this process, is that they didn't go do enough due diligence in the product development phase, which we're going to go into in the next module. We're going to get very detailed about the proper way to go through your product development process. They didn't go far enough. They just basically got rough estimates through, a manufacturer and Alibaba, and they didn't know all the hidden costs in developing it. They had a prototype created by, a local shop, or it might be 3D printed, and it hadn't gone through all of the prototyping iterations to be the final prototype, which tiny little changes have ripple effect in not only the development but the costs involved. And when they finally were able to go to the manufacturer and finish out those steps, they get slapped in the face with their pricing. So I prefer that you get all the way to the final prototyping, or better yet, the master sample, and be ready to make that order before you go onto the crowdfunding platform. And that also, so that means all your cost of goods, what it's going to cost to make the actual finished product, the fulfillment costs, what is it going to cost to ship the product to me? This last product we've got, it's an $80 per unit ship charge from China to our front door. And that's actually about, well, the cost of the goods for the product is $220 plus another 80. So the 80 would reflect a huge percentage.
It's 30%. Shoot.
There's math again.
Yeah, it's not 30% of the cost.
More math. So the you need to know the numbers to get it shipped to you, and then shipped to the customer. You have to know what your packaging costs are going to be. You need to know all those different elements to not get screwed in this process, and also have a next step plan, because a lot of people only see as far as the Kickstarter and they don't have a plan for what's next. So let's say I've launched this baby, I've done all these steps, and I've made my initial order and I delivered my product, but what now? What am I going to do now? Did I have enough money left over to place a second order, or am I sitting there with not enough money to keep going? Have a plan for how am I going to get customers on an ongoing basis. Use a proven formula, or better yet, a team. So there are crowdfunding experts out there, and they're not cheap. The crowdfunding experts cost quite a bit of money to use, plus they're probably, the good ones are going to probably ask for a percentage. And I've seen everything from 8% to 24%. So that would be on top of those additional fees. Plus, they don't pay for the media for you. You have to pay for that. Their plan to be successful on these platforms, you have to launch your own marketing program. So it's almost as if the crowdfunding platform didn't exist and you just had your own e-commerce website. You have to pay for customers to come to your website and purchase, and you've got to go through the entire sales funnel process. You buy your ads, you drive your traffic, you close a deal. Now you're actually buying your ads and driving your traffic to the crowdfunding platform. And so those ad costs, the cost to pay for a professional to help you do that, those are all additional costs that you're going to have to add into your pro forma so that you know what your overhead is, so you know how much profit you're going to make at the end of the day. And like I said, there are proven formulas for not only setting up the page, but there's proven formulas for the pre-sales, the driving your traffic, and the plan and program and the public relations involved in that. And then there needs to be plans for afterward. And you can hire a team to handle, a successful campaign, but you need to be aware of those different elements. Anything else to add?
No, it's just that those costs can creep up so quick.
Absolutely.
And that's where you really got to weigh the benefit of the crowdfunding done properly, or do you just want to go launch it yourself? Right.
So crowdfunding does not mean free funding.
Mm-hmm.
It just means what your goal is if you can put together enough money to get through your product development clear to the end, as well as have enough money to run a successful crowdfunding campaign, and your profit at the end of the day on your spreadsheet still pans out to where you have something to work with in the future, boom, here's your funding platform.
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually step by step go through our process as we launch our product, and we're gonna go from the very initial idea phase through all of the product development steps, as well as the marketing steps, as well as the crowdfunding platform, so that we can show all that off. And you'll have a better idea of what that all means at that point. So let's move on. So we've talked about, the importance of knowing what you're going to have for money to get this idea off the ground. We talked about the various different places where you can go find funding. So, we talked about the funding levels and the different players involved. And so what I'd like to talk about now, this is something that was also a discovery process for us, which is, how do we find those partners, the institutional partners? We're working on this right now with the Dragon Grill. We're finishing up the presentations, the pitch, the pitch deck, the one sheeter, and we're going to be shooting sales videos as soon as I get this working prototype that we have right now. We're retrofitting it. As soon as the retrofit is complete and I have an actual working prototype I can utilize, then we're going to go find institutional partners and we're going to present to them. We're going to pitch to them, try to get us some money for the next phase in that project. And so we talked about venture capital. So your institutional partners, or your venture capital, your banks, and I even include angel investors in there, even though they're not actually considered institutional. In my mind, they're considered institutional because I don't know any personally. I'd have to find them the same way that I find venture capital. And so the first thing that it's important to know is you're looking for a personal introduction. That is by far the best way to find an investor. Just like family and friends, go ask your rich uncle. If you have the ability, you have anyone in your life, anyone in your network, in your sphere, friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, get some sort of a personal link to an institutional investor. So that would be someone who's involved in the venture capital world or even in the angel investor world. You want to be able to have some connection to them because they are seeing hundreds of deals, and every single one of them will tell you their network amongst themselves and the network of people that are around them is what they use to source their deals. So they may pass a deal over to a buddy. This deal doesn't quite fit me, but I thought you might be interested in it. But before then, they would have been handed that by their accountant or accountant's friend. A personal introduction is by far the best way to break that ice and get in there. So we're doing that right now. We're sending out emails. We are reaching out to our entire network, trying to get introductions to either or angel investors or venture capital investors. Google search. So let's say you don't have anyone or you have tried those and got nowhere. Then you're just going to have to go do it the hard way. And it still works. I mean, they still need deal flow. At the end of the day, if you don't have someone that can personally introduce you to one of these institutions, then you're just going to do it anyways. You need to go do a Google search.
You just got to work a little bit harder.
Exactly. So, when you're doing a Google search, you're just looking for venture capital firms and angel investor groups. The angel investor groups are typically by region. Most large metroplexes have one or several angel investor groups, and these groups are typically, they meet once a month. They hear 2 or 3 pitches, and the group might get involved in it. One of the individuals might. It's all over the board. The angel investor group here in Fort Worth, there's the Cowtown Angels, and I want to say there's 500 members. So there's 500, accredited, experienced angel investors that are in that group, and they hear 2 or 3 pitches a month. And Your goal is to break in there and become one of those presenters. And regardless of whether it works out or not, it's an amazing learning experience going through it. And they are the ones that then could help you network with others. That's one of your goals is if you're not going to get money from that group, you're going to try to get to the next level with that group. You're going to figure out where else I should go.
You need to know.
Exactly. Or it'll even make you go back to the table and say, I need to rethink either my product idea, my pitch. Typically, the reason that you aren't finding success if you're actually doing pitches in front of investors and you're failing, you probably don't have something that is fixable. You have something broken, but is fixable. It's either the business model. It's a lot of times the business model. Your margins aren't high enough. You have too high of an valuation on your business. Those are common reasons why people don't get involved. Other reasons are I don't know or understand your niche. It's not mine. It's not the niche we serve. So it's typically not because that's a dumb idea. I mean, it is that sometimes too, but it's usually, once you've gone through the processes we've led you down so far, you've validated that idea to a market already. So if you've done your homework and you've done your research and you've put together everything that we've laid out up to this point, the reasons for them not getting involved have to do with, it doesn't fit what I'm doing, or you need to rework your business model somehow. So when you do the Google search, you're looking for typically venture capital. You'd be just looking for venture capital, and one thing that you really need to hone in on, and I don't know if I have it in the slide later, but you're looking for venture capital firms who specialize in your niche. Now, when I say specialize in your niche, most of these venture capital firms, they fit one of three categories. Let me see, do we have it in here?
Yeah, it's in there. The consumer goods or...
Yeah, where's that at? It's a couple more slides down. All right, so essentially what you're doing, and I'll go into that detail here in a minute, but essentially what you're doing is that you're doing a Google search for venture capital, and you're going to their portfolios, and you're researching their portfolios. These are screenshots from two different venture capital firms, and it was only a fraction of how many companies that they have that are in their portfolio. And each one of them had maybe 50 to 75 companies that they had backed. And I clicked on every single one, and I would go look and see what that product represented. And that's gonna teach me what this particular firm, like what kind of industries this firm likes to be in, as well as the kind of products. So I'm looking for in this process, I'm looking for similar products. So those products can be serving, they might be household items, they might be, outdoor, recreational. There's venture capital firm for almost every niche of product in every industry. And so the categories that they typically fit into is consumer goods versus hardware versus technology. So consumer goods, and I didn't know this going in. Years ago I had no idea that there was this delineation. I thought venture capital firms were venture capital firms. I thought you had a good,
make money and have a good
right. I thought if you had a good product, it didn't matter. But they very, very specialize. They very are focused in certain niches. So this is the higher level breakdown: is consumer goods versus hardware versus tech. Obviously, consumer goods would be, all kinds of, be toys. It would be clothes. It would be furniture, cups. Yeah, I mean, it would be anything that is sort of what might be considered like a dumb product. There's really no technology related to the product, which is, today they are installing, smart products everywhere. So they're applying technology to products like never before. I mean, my refrigerator is now a what's considered a hardware product. So the difference between a consumer good and a hardware product is that they consider hardware where somehow technology integrates with it to make it smarter, more or less. So it could be anything from something as simple as my refrigerator and it knowing when I need to replace my filters, and my coffee pot, those kind of like electronic devices that they're integrating apps to. So now my home security system is connected to my phone, and that's considered a hardware product. So the app, I can now, pull up my phone and I can see who's ringing the doorbell. So hardware products are combining consumer goods with tech, essentially. And then tech is tech. It's really mostly software. It's a lot of internet related, online platforms, systems and services, apps for phones. It's basically only virtual technology. So when you are going through these portfolios, you'll start to see a pattern. And what I like to do is I like to look for, and you're going to mostly find consumer goods. That's going to be, I'm sorry. You're mostly going to find hardware.
Yeah.
So hardware and tech are really, really hot. Most all of these companies that I looked up, that if you don't have some sort of technology applied to your product, the likelihood of you getting picked up is really low. And in my discussions with VC experts, they say consumer goods is a very hard category to find funding for. There's very few institutional investors who are backing consumer good products for a number of reasons, mostly because that it's much, much more difficult to get a proprietary or some sort of a competitive advantage that I can hold on to, like I can if I'm in the hardware or the technology sector. And they love, solid competitive advantages. They like to invest in those kind of things. So if you have a product that is riding that line, I advocate go ahead and take the leap and figure out a way to integrate technology into your thought process. If not, and you really truly are just a consumer good, doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that it's much more difficult to find those institutional people who are going to get behind it. When I said ask for referrals, we talked about that already up above, but mostly don't be timid. And what I mean by that is that I know a lot of individual inventors, they're out of their comfort zone in the first place going through this entire process. When it comes to funding, they're really outside their comfort zone. So what we've been trying to do is give you the tools so that you're more knowledgeable going in, and it'll help build your confidence. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, this is your dream, and you're not going to let anybody stand in your way. So when I say don't be timid, these investors only make money when they invest. And that's just the truth. They need to place that money somewhere. And if you have gone through these processes to create a business model with your product that is profitable, and you've done the research and you know that there's a market for it, and you've presented it and the market responded positively, and you have confidence in what you've got now, go get it in front of people. Start pitching and just make sure that you don't let this aspect, this final part of finding funding, be the holdup for you to follow through.
And I think it's important to bring up what we talked about before is these people are inventing in the people, the person.
Investing in the people, yes.
And if you're timid, it makes them less likely to invest in
Oh,
you.
that's exactly true. Yeah, they love confidence. And you're really, like we've said before, that the number one the thing I hear from inventors is I don't have enough money. I don't have any money. Number one thing I hear from investors is there's not enough deal flow. So they need deal flow. And B, that they're really investing in you. That they're, if they believe in you, that's what they're giving their money over for. So the product itself is a secondary aspect. And so when you go in, be confident in what you've put together, and don't be timid when you want to get to this point. So let's move to some insider tips. Educate yourself and know your shit. Again, we just basically talked about how that provides confidence, and you'll also know your options better. So the more you educate yourself on this funding aspect, learn more about the angel groups in your area, angel investing, find out who different financial partners are. Investment banks are the ones that put together packages and actually can go out and broker deals for you. Learn more and more about this investing aspect so that you have options and you know how to make choices and where to spend your time. We don't go into a lot of the detail here because this is really not a funding, this education is not just a funding education. I want to give you enough information and background that you can make good decisions, but you need to go and educate yourself more. You need to know your shit so that you can choose your funding wisely. Focus on minimum viable product market. Get some sales. That's being able to get your project through the entire development process to where you have something you can sell, even if it's not the end goal product. What we call the minimum viable product is, okay, for me to get this particular product exactly like I like it. And again, the product we're going to use in the action plan is that. The final product I see in my head is a line of products. It's a brand. It's cool as shit. It's got all these features and functions, and I'm able to hold off competition. It's 10 times better, all of those things. But my minimum viable product is 10 steps down from that. It's actually good enough that someone will pay me for it. It's not my optimal product, but it's one that I think that I can get to market faster and break in there and start building a customer base, and then I'll start launching versions and I'll start launching line extensions. So the minimum viable product to market so that I can get some sales, that's the best advice I can give you for funding, because there's a lot more opportunity for finding capital for people who are selling stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that also gives you an opportunity to work on your sales process. So when you're meeting with the angel investors or the venture capitalists, they know you don't only have a product, but you got a plan to get sales in the door.
Oh yeah,
working.
There's a lot of investors who will invest in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is go as far as you can without other people's money, but don't fear it. So OPM, common term in the marketplace, is other people's money. Investors need to invest in deals for them to make money. You want to try to get as far as you can. Like I said, the optimal is to get to this point where you're making some sales. But if you can't get to the sales aspect, if you can't, wherever you are in this process, there's someone out there who has backed ideas before and given them money for investment capital, and they got the products made and they sold millions and millions of dollars worth. There's hundreds and hundreds of stories where somebody presents ideas that's just a cobbled up, made up, homemade product just to demonstrate an idea, and somebody believed in it. Probably more than believed in it, believed in the person presenting it. Mm-hmm. So I do want you to go as far as you can, but don't fear going and getting outside capital. Your story is your savior. Everyone, your customer as well as the investor, they like good stories. Story sells. So if you have a story, the mom who closed her baby's finger in the latch on their baby's carriage stroller and she invented, a product to keep babies from getting their fingers cut off. There's a story there. There's story in a lot of inventors' products. So make sure that you lead with your story and that your story is authentic and your story is really what will break the ice in a lot of these things. So your story is often your savior, both when you're selling to your customers and when you're trying to get investors. Use royalties instead of equity. So during the process of development, there's a lot of costs involved from outside vendors. Outside people will be helping you along the way. So when we get into the next module, we'll be talking about hiring a team to take you from your sketch and your rough mock-up all the way through to finished product. And a lot of those individuals and those firms are used to either reducing their fees or sometimes removing them altogether for royalties at the end. And so it's a good way it's a good approach if you have your pro forma worked out right. Again, it's all gonna be reflective in there. You can provide a way for them to make more money on the back end. Now, the reason I say royalties instead of equity is because a lot of individuals jump out and they start, hey, I'll give you 10% of my company, I'll give you 15% of my company, and they start handing out equity in their business. And what happens is that once you need further rounds of capital from institutions or angels or anyone, they don't like to see a company diluted 25 times. Mm-hmm. They want to see that you own either all of it or a majority of it. They don't want to see you handing out a bunch of equity along the way. Plus, I mean, as a vendor goes, because we're in this boat most of the time, that as a service provider, I prefer royalties over equity anyhow, because I have no idea how well you're going to run your company. But if I can get it to a point where you're making sales and you're selling your product and I'm just getting a piece for each one of those, then I'm really vested in helping you try to sell that product. And I have equity positions in companies that I've had for 20 years and never saw a dime out of them. Because you can make the books any way you want to. So equity doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if you use royalties, usually you'll find good partners that want to see you succeed, and then it doesn't dilute your position for later on.
And imagine royalties will also help push the deadlines forward, because the only way you're making money is
right. Now I'm going to clarify this again. We say this constantly. You need to seek professional advice on all this. This isn't advice. These are things that we've dealt with, and we're just sharing to our community. We're not giving you advice on what you should or shouldn't do. You need to seek professional. There are contract attorneys that can help you navigate the royalty versus equity aspect, and it's very important that you do this properly, because there are some legal issues in how you get involved in all of those things as well. So you need to know what those are, and we will have more information on that. We've got a couple of attorneys that we're going to interview on specific contracting and licensing and the royalty versus equity play. So when we're giving you these inputs, these are things that we have done. We're just sharing what we have done. So, but do seek a professional when it comes to these kind of things so that you do it properly. Create a branded line. So again, the product that I'm going to bring to market is a pretty scaled down. It's a one product thing. It's just good enough that I think people are going to pay me money for it, and I'm going to be able to make a profit. I'm going to be able to start building a brand, and once I have those customers going and I get some momentum, my overall goal is to build out a line of products. I want to add other products, other versions, improvements, adaptions. I want to have some accessories that I'm going to bring in. I'm going to build out a more robust product category. I'm going to build basically a branded line. And I say that because that has a lot more value to potential investors than just that single product. So to use that example, my initial product that I'm launching in the marketplace, I think that product alone, in its version, is about a 25 to $50 million business idea. As a line, as a complete line of products, and I build out my entire branded line, I believe that it could be $150 to $250 million business. So I went from a few people investors would be interested to a lot of investors would be interested, all by thinking grandly.
Well, and I think you also, in some of the terminology used, it's thinking about a product versus a business. And those investors are going to be thinking business, not necessarily one product.
And I'm also saying product versus a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about a cooler versus Yeti.
Yeah.
A cooler company, a new cooler company in a specific niche is worth X, but the Yeti brand is worth $1 billion. So the brand and the line, the extensions, are what really brought the value home, and not just a product. So start thinking in brand and start thinking in line and extensions. And again, start small, the minimum viable product. And I know why I said start small. This was an idea that I remembered, is that let's say you go through the next stage where we are going to talk about product development, and you start gathering your proposals and your bids, and you start putting this all together for your product, and at the end of the day you realize, oh my God, I'm going to need $1 million to get going, just to get there. Even my minimum viable product, right? Mm-hmm. And it just takes the wind out of you. One of the techniques that I have advocated in the past, and I did it without even knowing it myself, is that I completely switched gears and I came up and brought to market a different product. My sketchbook is full of ideas. I can't do that one right now. But what if I did this one over here? This one over here is $25,000 for me to get from all the way through product development, and then another $20,000 or $25,000 for my initial order. So I'm talking about $55,000. I just switched my gear and refocused my energy. Now this may or may not be my ultimate goal product, but it's something that I can pursue, and I'll learn a ton in that process. Inventors who invent one time are highly likely to do it again and again and again. When you have a successful invention that you brought to market, the likelihood you're going to be able to do that again goes way, way up. So if you go through this process and you figure out, you're just overwhelmed, you really think you're going to throw in the towel, pivot and start thinking about, well, then what can I do? So when I say that I've done it, is that I have gone down a pathway of a product that I thought, holy crap, this is a great idea. But at the end of the day, it was a huge idea. Mm-hmm. So I pivoted and just launched a different one, a smaller one, an easier one. All right, so let's wrap this baby up. Let's do some questions, my friend.
I got a couple here. The first one is from Grant from San Diego. I've considered quitting my job to pursue my idea. It's been my dream for a long time. What do you think, Lobo?
Grant, I'm going to come see you in San Diego. I love San Diego.
Yeah, me too.
I'd say no, dude. Unless you absolutely hate your job and you're going to quit anyways, and then you should just go get another job. People quitting their jobs to pursue their invention idea is we'll put it this way. I don't personally know any inventor who quit their job and then worked on their idea and launched it successfully. I know hundreds who kept their job, worked nights and weekends on their project, used their job to continue to pay their bills and maybe even fund their project. And once that project is even up and running, I know I have friends now who they've done 2 or 3 projects and they still have their original job.
Mm-hmm.
They realize that I don't need to quit. I can develop a business model where all of it's automated. You know, my manufacturer is sending to a fulfillment company. The fulfillment company is sending it out, and it's turnkey. Everything, all the sales and the marketing is all automated now. It's all online. I don't need to quit my job, and then they launch another one. So quitting your job is in my opinion, is not a good recommendation. I would look to keeping it and doing all this on the side.
Well, Robo, you and I talked about this. Is this becomes our hobby at this point,
Yes,
not our job?
right. Until it starts cashing in the bank, it's a hobby.
Yep. Second question from Dwayne in Dallas. How much should I ask for from an investor? And how much of my equity do I have to give up for it?
All of it. Get it all. So the how much you should ask for from an investor is a really loaded question. It has a lot to do with the valuation process. So most of the time, and you see this on Shark Tank all the time, people come in and they want $500,000 for 10% of their company, and they're creating a valuation, and they haven't sold a single product,
Mm-hmm.
or they've been selling for 5 years and they have $90,000 in sales. So the valuation is how an investor determines what they're going to invest in projects, and they're looking for a good valuation. They want what they want is I should say a proper valuation. How do you value something that doesn't have any sales yet? And I don't have an exact formula. I just know what we've done in the past is that we went as far as we could to get to a point where we finally had to go get some outside capital. And no project I've ever worked on did I get outside capital, to get institutional venture capital before sales were happening. So I don't know I haven't done it, so therefore I don't know how that works. But we have gotten capital from angels, and we have gotten capital from rich uncles, and presented the business model, and we based it on a very conservative valuation. We sort of you're going to have to overgive in the beginning. So the farther towards sales you can get, the less you're going to have to give up, but you're going to have to overgive until you can actually show sales.
Mm-hmm.
Once you can show sales, now valuation is pretty standard. Depending on the niche you're in, each niche has different valuation propositions, but a standard rule of thumb is 1.5% to 3%. So that means that if your projected sales are $100,000, then you can take that time 1.5, and that's the value of my business, and then I'm offering a percentage of that for investment capital. If I'm actually making sales, now I have a real number that I can say, this is our current sales, and these are our projected sales, and now I can stretch to the 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have another business where we sell a product to a highly defined animal healthcare market, and we have our valuation at 6% for the business. And the reason we do is, we have really good 7-year runway of sales, right? Plus we have amazing brand awareness in that space, and brand strength. It's a double whammy. So a lot of people know who we are, but a lot of people really, really resonate with it, and they like the brand. So because of all those factors, our ongoing sales process, the strength of our brand and the awareness of our brand, we're asking for 6 times the valuation. So our annual sales times 6 is what we want as investment capital. And so finding your valuation is really, really hard when you don't have any sales and you don't have any idea for projections. This is, again, where you might want to sit down with a professional who can help you navigate that process. Because I don't have any real idea, it's hard for me to say. And then, was there a second half to that question or not? Maybe not.
Well, that's talking about how much equity we have to give up.
Okay.
For that.
Again, that is very, very subjective. Too subjective to give a great answer. You're going to have to give up way more than you want to. You know, you're going to be. A lot of people think, "Oh, I'm going to give 10%." You're not going to find experienced capital that will give you 10% at that point.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to really stretch into the deeper numbers. But without history or understanding of a specific XYZ, I don't know how to even answer that question without looking like an asshole.
You know, and it also kind of probably depends if they have a patent on the product that makes it a little bit more valuable company at that point. So there's a lot of variables there.
Right.
Third question, which you almost kind of answered in the last one. My wife's uncle has a lot of money. Is it bad for me to use relatives?
No. Again, yeah, we talked about this earlier in the slide, is that it's not bad. In fact, that's probably the most common way to get a project funded is a relative. You know, someone that has the money. I'm going to go back to more particularly her question. Does the relative, if you borrow this money, do they really need it? Is it if it fails, does it hurt them in any way whatsoever? Or if they gave it to you and you just went and blew it in Vegas, well, which, you know, that'd be bad blood anyways, but let's just say you just lose it, it fails, you know, is that going to harm them in any way? If it is, I say either proceed with caution or don't do it. You know, I wouldn't do it. If it's the other way around, if you know if you have a high net worth, they're scratching a check that they're giving me $25,000 that's just fun money that they were going to go on vacation with or buy an extra boat, but they wanted to give it to you because they want to see you succeed and they believe in you and they love the idea. Definitely pursue, you know, family if all those markers are right.
Yeah, and you know, if things do go one way or another, I think it's just important to communicate and be honest where things are in the process.
Absolutely. And you'll know, I mean, like I said, if you go through these processes right, everything we've taught you up till now, and you have that pro forma figured out, and you can sit down and confidently look at yourself and go, man, this is a good idea. This makes profit. I have got a lot of feedback from potential customers, not from just other family and friends, people that like me, but I've got feedback from real customers that it has a value. It's a growing market. My idea is unique. You know, all these factors line up. It's all about making choices. It's all about making good decisions and good choices. And this might be a great choice if everything lines up.
All right. Question 4 from Deneen from New York. I've been contacted by a company that says they can do everything from manufacture to selling the product and get licensing contracts for me. They charge $2,000 for a 2-year contract and only a 20% commission for any licensed deals. What's your experience with these companies?
Well, my experience personally was really shitty. I've dealt with that not that exact scenario, but a very similar scenario, and ended up with just a handful of shit. And I've heard a lot of bad stories regarding that as well. I don't know the company. I'm not going to even, you know, weigh in on companies, but usually the ethical players in the market are not in that kind of game. If you do some research, do a lot of background research on this particular company. Google their name, plus, you know, problems, fails. Look up litigation. Look up, you know, consumer reviews. Try to find out their backstory, and what you're looking for is any kind of consistency in either success or failures, and unethical behavior, mostly unethical behavior. Most companies most of the groups out there who are legitimate don't just have a will take a fee to get you licensing deals. The licensing professionals that I've worked with, they are either taking a fee only. They take a fee to help me navigate. It's an attorney helps me navigate the licensing deal and helps me negotiate a contract, but I'm paying him like I would my lawyer to get a patent.
It's just a one-time.
Right, they're not, and in fact, I don't even know, we'll have to ask Ben or Connor if that's even legal for them to take a fee and then take commission. I would have to say it isn't. There are a lot of horror stories about, there's a lot of big companies that have that sort of business model, and what you're going to find online is a lot of outcry that there's not a lot of success there. So in our product development process later on, we'll lay out the type of people who are out there who can do each part of this for you, all the way through the marketing and the sales aspect, and you can negotiate revenue shares with them, revenue deals with them, but they usually aren't in that kind of business of having a package where most of these companies, these inventor help companies, who are set up to do, there's a lot of these inventor help companies that are set up to basically just get your money out of you, and you really are left with nothing, or they just sit on it. So we have an interview with a young woman that we've already got. Haven't decided whether we're going to run it or not in our podcast, but she told a very, very heartbreaking story of several different failures, and one of them was with a company like this. And a lot of these companies are, this is again the crowdfunding issue, going back to crowdfunding. One thing that we didn't talk about, which I can't believe we didn't talk about, I usually lead with it, is that the sharks are all over the blood in that water. So the companies the manufacturers, these inventor help companies, those kind of people who are the unethical players, are on those platforms looking for winners that they can knock off constantly. The others are looking for ignorant people that they can take advantage of. So it's a sourcing platform for both stealing ideas and or getting as much money out of somebody as they can. Not all of them. I'm not saying that's. I'm just saying that's what's going on in the industry right now, and it's at every single marketing and crowdfunding event that I've been to over the last 2 or 3 years. That's what we talk about. It's what's talked about the most, is how many people are being screwed and ripped off on those platforms. And so,
gotcha. All right, last question. John from Bismarck. I've got a funny video of kids using my product. Should I send this to people who might be interested in funding it?
Absolutely. In fact, one of if you reflect back on the pitch video that we talked about, make it engaging. The most engaging aspect is showing customers interacting with your product and having fun with your product. So if you have videos like that, absolutely. Now that's not all I would show them. I wouldn't go in and say, hey, look at this, can you give me some money? You need to have all your ducks in a row and all your financials put together in your pitch deck. But I definitely would include that in it, as a compelling argument for either the fun or the educational or entertaining aspect of my product, for sure.
I agree.
All right. So coming up next, Module 5. This is the final module of the main aspect of getting your product from your idea to the final product and getting it made. And this is really the meat and potatoes part. It's actually making the idea. We're going to discuss the 6 steps of product development. There's a lot more steps, but they're mostly sub-steps. But there's 6 main steps of the product development process. We'll be discussing the scope of work. It's a document that will help you navigate the process of working with your vendors. we're going to talk about the vendors. We're going to talk about the people who help you get this done. It's essentially the development team. I always consider my development team, even if they're freelancers I've never met face to face, just through platforms, I still consider them part of my team. It helps with the relationship. And we're going to go and talk about the preparing for action aspect. Well, this is the one, this is going into the next module, the next series, I should say, where we show you, we put a lot of everything you've learned in this set of modules. We're going to demonstrate live on a product and take you through that and use that as a case study all the way through. And in fact, it's ongoing now. We've already started working on it. So hopefully we'll have it down the road and be ready to finish it up in time to start working on that series. So I just wanted to thank you all very much, and Robo out.